Hello.
Hi, Joe.
You're not at City Hall, are you?
No, I'm home.
Oh, I was going to say, wow.
So I'm gonna see if I can pass it to you to be the. Is that who you want? Do you want to be host?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay. Okay, I'm making you the host.
All right. When the participants, when the panelists, when they join, I don't have to do anything. They just come right on, right?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. And then as soon as I press record, that allows all the attendees to come in.
I'm not sure. I've only done one other webinar, and it was like a really small one,
All
and
right.
so we didn't really practice any of this stuff.
Hi, Twink.
Hi, Joe.
I think it is, Emery, I think it is, I think once I press record, I think it starts to trickle in.
Oh, okay. I didn't set up like a waiting room or anything. It just everybody's accepted that registered. So
Right. I think that they're all like, see, I think like the panelists are able to come in, like Twink and Dan. So they're all part of the steering committee, and they're the panelists. And I think that the folks that they got the regular kind of registration link, that means that they're kind of down on as attendees. And I think that as soon as I press recording, then they basically are all let in. They'll start to trickle in.
okay, because yeah, you can see under, if you click on participants, it shows 5 panelists and 5 attendees.
Right.
So the attendees are in another area. Okay.
Yeah, and as soon as I start recording, they'll be let in. I think that Twink and Dan and myself are in because we all have because of you, we have the panelist. Oh, it says, oh, somebody said they can actually hear us from.
Hi, Amy.
Oh, they can. All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so Joe, I'm gonna leave, and you should be good to go, unless you need me.
All right.
And Joe, can you make me a co-host?
Yeah. Can I? Let's see. So I think it's one of the attendees. They're saying that they actually can hear us. So I think we are. Anybody that's in can see us as panelists. They're just not. And yeah, he said yes. So you can see in the chat. Okay, thank you, Jeff. I use Zoom all the time, but I don't always operate it. I have all the controls here. Let's see. Make Dan co-host. Make Dan co-host. Yes. Do you want to make Dan co-host? Yes. I read all these now, Dan, very carefully, because the last thing I want to do is exit us all again.
Really? Is that possible?
Jeff is like an expert. Jeff is sending us, we can't see him, but he's sending us lots of messages saying what we should be doing and how to do it. Since you started in the webinar, it's open now to all. So everybody can hear us.
All right. Well, we will start at 6:30. We're just going to.
We will start at 6:30. We were just kind of
Housekeeping.
coming early to do logistics. Amy, I like your new haircut, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye. Have a good meeting.
Noticed. Thank you, Anne Marie, so much for setting everything up.
Of course. All right.
Have a nice evening, Anne Marie. All right, let's see. So we are waiting for Doug, Jill, Jennifer, and I have Wayland. I don't know if he's gonna. He may have gotten the panelist link, but we'll see. And then Abe is coming as well, so we'll wait for Abe as well.
We should certainly at least give it until the 6:30, right?
Oh, yeah.
You guys, nobody said anything about my background.
I like your background.
I switched it from the solar panels to this.
You look like you have a pointy hat on.
Let me see if I can change. Oh no, I won't touch anything. I was gonna say, let me see if I can change the view. Oh, Jill, welcome.
Here I am.
So Joe, I am going to do that, the recommendations and rationale.
All right, perfect.
I was able to get the other things done and out of the way.
All right, that sounds great.
Thank you, Amy.
And then when we wrap it up with community engagement and next steps, feel free. Anybody can jump in. I'll say a few words, and then anybody can jump in as well.
Anybody reached out to Doug today, Doug Goad?
I texted him during our meeting and never heard back.
I think I'll just give him a call. I'll mute myself while I try him.
It's a good idea.
So I just noticed another thing. It says recording at the top of my screen. So
Yes, it is currently recording.
but then how do the guests come in? I thought if I press the recording button, that's when everybody's let in.
I think people are able to jump right in. This is a
right.
webinar format, so we see each other as
Right.
panelists and they can see us, but we can't see them.
Got it.
Do we have anyone
All right.
who's planning to monitor the chat?
I can do that. Do you want me to do? What,
Yeah.
What do I do though? If I see someone's put a question, what do I do?
I would say if we could basically, if all of our participants can put their questions in the Q&A, that would probably be easier. And so that when we go to the Q&A, perhaps what we can do is just we can alternate reading some of the questions and then maybe even let some folks in that want to ask their questions live.
Do you mean wait for the chat and not put it on until the Q&A?
Yeah, I think that's probably what we should do, unless in your judgment, it's something that we should react to in the moment. But I think in general, we've got a solid chunk of time set aside for Q&A, so that's probably the best place to do the questions.
People just need to understand though, we need to somehow communicate, please hold your chat questions until the Q&A.
Or they can put them in. We can just wait until
okay.
Q&A to read them.
Yeah, see at the bottom of the screen. Does everybody have at the bottom of the screen Q&A? So at the bottom it says Q&A and then chat. And so if they put their questions in the Q&A, they can put it in at any time. And then when we go to the Q&A portion, we can just kind of read through those and scroll through those and answer them. Or we can, last time we also allowed people to come on as a panelist and ask their questions. And so we can do that again too.
Yeah, they won't actually be panelists, but if they raise their hand,
allowed to talk,
we can see them and we can invite them to unmute and ask their questions.
All right.
And Jeff in the chat had suggested that we use the pin function, and we can do that when we get to 6:30 in the formal part of the presentation to help manage the bouncing around of speakers or background noises.
So Michelle Tutoli is chatting. So I guess she says she can hear you and see the screen. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we're live for the webinar version. We didn't hold people in a holding pen, and so we're just waiting until 6:30 to get started.
Yeah. So that's why I was kind of confused, because the last time, Dan, we did it a bit differently.
Yeah, it seems like every Zoom webinar type thing is a new adventure.
Yeah. They're like, people are probably listening to us like, oh my gosh, have they not ever used Zoom before?
We're all neighbors. I'm sure they'll cut us some slack.
Jeff sounds like an expert on Zoom. So it's only, I guess it's only Doug that we're missing?
He
Of the
will.
panelists and Abe, but I don't think we really need Abe until the Q&A.
Doug said he's about to log on.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
How will the survey be live? Is there a cutoff date?
You cut out on my audio just as you're asking a critical question.
Oh, yeah. How long will the survey be available for participants to complete it? Is there a cutoff date?
There doesn't need to be one until my membership renews in 6 months or something. So we can keep it going as long as people are interested in having their voices heard. I think that the prime advocacy efforts are going to be over the next several months, so it'll get stale at some point.
Okay.
All right, in a couple more minutes, we'll start at 6:30.
Okay. Hey, Joe, just in the next step section, when it talks about advocating as a community, you'll probably need to fill in a little color there, even though it's in
All
my
right,
section.
absolutely.
Yeah, because
Right.
yeah, you're going to be a better resource for that.
All right, absolutely. And then anybody else is free to jump in as well. Just kind of, if I miss anything, you guys are free to jump in and kind of let folks know what you think as well.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, who's that?
Jennifer Bishop.
Oh, Jennifer.
I'm hiding behind my picture.
I was gonna say, I can't see you.
So Jennifer, just so
Oh,
you
there you
know,
go.
we're live on the webinar. We're just waiting until 6:30 to get started.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Doug.
Hey there. Hey, guys.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, Doug.
Jennifer, I hope you're recovering nicely.
Oh, I'm doing great.
Good.
And I get my first vaccine tomorrow.
Awesome.
I got a letter from my mom's oncologist. I was like, yay.
Where are you going to go?
I have an appointment at Scripps Superstation.
Okay. Is that at the fair? Down at the fairgrounds?
Yeah, at the fairgrounds. Yes.
Right. Okay, good, good.
Okay, guys, it is 6:30, so I suggest that the panelists that aren't up go ahead and mute themselves, and then we'll hand this over to Joe to kick us off.
All right. Well, good evening. This is the Rancho Santa Fe Road Task Force Community Meeting. It's February 18th, 2021. It's just around 6:30 in the evening time, and this is the third community meeting that we've had of the task force. My name is Joe Mosca, and I'm your city council member. And I'm joined tonight by my fellow members of the Rancho Santa Fe Road Task Force Steering Committee. So that's a lot of words, but we have a steering committee that we've put together to kind of guide this whole process, the task force, and to allow us to do a lot of work while the task force isn't meeting all the time. So joining me tonight as members of the steering committee and on this panel is Dan Vaughn, Doug Goad, Twink Booman, Jill Treadwell, Jennifer Bishop, Amy McCord, Jennifer Flanagan Hack, and Waylon Myers. Also on the panel tonight is going to be our city traffic engineer, Abe Bannigan, whenever I think he's going to join us very shortly. And maybe
I'm here, Councilmember, I'm here.
Oh, Abe, thank you for attending. And is our traffic consultant, Dave DePiro, also with us?
No, it's just me tonight.
All right, so Abe is here as well. He's going to help us with the Q&A. Our agenda tonight is pretty straightforward. It's right up on the screen. We're going to do some background, talk about the purpose of the task force, summarize the recommendations that the steering committee made to the task force, let you know about the results of the survey that the steering committee had conducted, and of course, give you an opportunity to let us know your feelings on the purpose of the task force, which is to improve Rancho Santa Fe Road, and let us know about the recommendations that we've put forth, what you think about those recommendations. This is a continuing conversation, so this is not the end of the conversation, but I guess we're in the middle of the conversation, if you will. And so your feedback is absolutely necessary and much appreciated. And we're going to wrap up the meeting tonight with community engagement and talking about the next steps in the process. So let me hand it over to Dan Vaughn, who's going to give you some of the history and background and purpose of our task force.
All right. I'm not sure I know how to actually pin myself.
So Dan, you're on mute now.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know how to actually pin myself as host. So Joe, if you can figure that out, please go ahead and pin me. In the meantime, I'll just start talking to the slides.
Dan, what do you mean by pin you?
Spotlight for everyone on the participant panel more is an option.
All right, I'll check it out.
Okay, so this effort started about 2 years ago, and I'll be fairly brief through this history part because I think most of the folks probably have seen the December Zoom call where we spoke to quite a bit of this. But the task force started as a partnership between the Leeuwenhoek Town Council and Councilmember Mosca, and we've relied heavily on a steering committee whose membership has evolved a little bit over the 2-year run. But we've, from the beginning, had a goal of building community consensus about how to improve the Rancho Santa Fe Road corridor, and then once we get to that point of consensus, to advocate with the city to get it adopted. And after the initial phase in 2019, where we reached out to the community through a survey, had a meeting at the town hall, we've sort of broke into 2 work streams, one of which was very quick and went very speedily, led by Twink, which was to define community character for Leeuwenhoek, what we meant by that. The second work stream, which has been much more laborious, was partnering with the city to conduct a traffic study and to really look at what the options were for changing some of the traffic control devices and what that would do to the transit time, especially during rush hour. Those two work streams have sort of started to come back together in late 2020. And last December, we were able to present some what we believed from the steering committee were consensus recommendations or proposed recommendations to try to build community consensus around. We had a very productive Q&A in December where the outside traffic consultant presented their work. And then earlier this month, we've started to field a survey to see how the community reacts to those proposed recommendations. This is the survey from 2019, and this is just a little bit for historical background, but I think it's interesting because it tees up very closely a lot of some of the background responses that we saw to the survey that's currently in the field. So we had 284 responses over about a month from late January to late February 2019. We found that the average length of residency was 20 years. And we asked people why they moved to Alevinhain. And the rural character was clearly a huge driver of that. Trails, roads, the ability to have horse lots, and just generally having large lots were also important factors. At the time, the population was supportive of improving safety, and especially for pedestrians and bicyclists. But the overall takeaway we had was sort of this two-part want. People wanted to both preserve the rural character of Alevinhain and to improve the peak rush hour congestion, the 20-30 minute wait to get home on a weekday afternoon, or 15-20 minutes to get out of Alevinhain in the morning rush hour. So based on that and the work streams that we did, we came up with several recommendations that we presented back in December. And I'm going to invite Amy McCord to just walk us through the recommendations that she had presented at that December meeting. All right, Amy. You can unmute yourself. The floor is yours, and I will advance your slides for you.
I'm sorry, what did you say last?
I'll advance your slides for you. Just let me know if I'm moving too slow.
Thank you very much. Yes, so we just wanted to reacquaint people with the proposed recommendations. So in the next slide, please, Dan. Phase 1 of the road improvements was to reduce the heavy southbound congestion on Rancho Santa Fe Road in the morning as it approaches Encinitas Boulevard. And after adding a second southbound left turn lane and reconfiguring the northbound lanes, the traffic flow has improved. Next slide, please. In phase 2, there will be a focus on safety issues that need correction. There's a lot of community support, support for improving walkability on Rancho Santa Fe Road. So the steering committee proposes adding crosswalks at the 5 intersections where there are currently 4-way stop signs. Those would be Olive Crest, Lone Jack, El Camino del Norte, Whisper Wind or 8th, and Ranch View Terrace or 7th. After implementing these crosswalks and hearing community reaction, it's possible there may be consideration for additional crosswalks. We know that speed is a problem, especially on the wider sections of Rancho Santa Fe Road. Our existing speed limit of 40 miles per hour is too high for many parts of the road. There have been numerous accidents where cars have veered off the road. Traffic engineering is working on a plan to calm and slow traffic by narrowing lanes on Rancho Santa Fe Road, and they will determine what speed limit is optimum for pedestrian safety as well as being practical for vehicles. The safety of students walking and bicycling to school is a top priority. It may make sense to post school zone speed limit signs of 25 miles per hour near Degaño and OPE. We recommend installing split rail fencing on the east side trail from Lone Jack Road to the northern boundary of Olivenheim. This would create a visual barrier between the road and the trail and would keep children from dashing into the street. Nearly 20 years ago, stop signs were installed on Rancho Santa Fe Road. The objective was to keep the road small and rural and to slow traffic. Those goals were achieved. The alternative would have been to install traffic lights and possibly widen the road, which would have turned the corridor into a thoroughfare, something that most Olivenheim residents have never wanted. Today, we propose to keep the four-way stop signs because they still work to slow traffic, and importantly, they allow residents to turn out of their neighborhoods. Next slide, please. In phase 3, the city will complete its plan to build Trail 82 on the east side of Rancho Santa Fe Road from El Camino del Norte to Encinitas Boulevard. This will allow Olivenheim residents to walk safely to corner shops. At the top of the hill just south of Morning Sun, a raised crosswalk is being considered. This would eliminate jaywalking and provide a safe crossing zone for Degano students. It would also calm traffic in a section of road that is prone to high speeds. Just north of Pepper Tree Lane, there's a dangerous curve where fatal accidents have occurred. Cars turning into Pepper Tree Lane sometimes block traffic, which has caused accidents, and people turning out have no visibility. In phase 3, traffic engineering will work to find a solution that reduces this safety hazard. Next slide, please. The intersections at Lone Jack and El Camino del Norte have the heaviest load of traffic during peak hours. The traffic model shows that changing these intersections is critical in order to reduce the peak hour congestion along the corridor. These two intersections are also heavily used by pedestrians and should provide safe crossing for everyone on foot, bicycle, or horse. There are really only 3 options for traffic control at these intersections. One is to do nothing, which obviously would not change congestion. Another option would be traffic lights. When traffic lights are used at an intersection, speed on the roadway goes up because drivers try to beat the red light. Increased speed on Rancho Santa Fe Road would attract more cut-through traffic, which would soon return us to the same level of congestion we're currently trying to reduce. At traffic lights, idling cars accumulate during the red light, which increases CO2 emission levels. When the light turns green, cars accelerate simultaneously, causing much more noise. Signalized intersections would flood nearby homes with unwanted light. There's really nothing about traffic lights that's in keeping with Olivenheim's strong desire to preserve its community character. Next slide, please. After weighing all the requirements, the steering committee reached consensus that the best option at Lone Jack and El Camino del Norte is to install roundabouts in phase 3. The initial consideration of a roundabout sometimes meets with resistance if people are not aware of the benefits. Once people get used to roundabouts, surveys show they really like them. Roundabouts calm traffic and improve traffic flow. The typical speed in a roundabout is 15 to 20 miles per hour. Because there's not a lot of stop and go, there's less noise from acceleration. Roundabouts also offer a significant safety benefit for pedestrians. The crosswalks are outside of the circle, and medians or islands allow pedestrians to cross only one lane of traffic at a time. Roundabouts have been shown to be between 7 and 9 times safer than traffic lights for injury and fatal accidents. The Federal Highway Administration states that typically installing a roundabout instead of a traffic light results in a 76% reduction in injury accidents, 90% reduction in fatalities, and 40% reduction in pedestrian collisions. Since we are in the early concept stage, no roundabout designs have been considered yet. When we get to that stage, we will address the exact size, location, and configuration. The design will be required to accommodate oversized vehicles like fire trucks and large gooseneck horse trailers. I know some people have been concerned about emergency vehicles, and I spoke with the firemen at the corner of Lone Jack and Rancho Santa Fe Road. And they said they actually prefer roundabouts for a number of reasons, particularly with the larger fire trucks. The design will also provide safety for those crossing on foot, horseback, or bicycle. Input from the community will continue to be welcome, so there will be consensus on the final design. The steering committee is proposing these consensus recommendations to you as a way to encourage your input. We'd like Rancho Santa Fe Road to serve the community in the best way possible, and we feel that these proposed changes are a nice blend of improving safety, preserving community character, and relieving the worst of the traffic congestion. Thank you.
All right, let me see if I can unpin you, Amy. And then I will go through the results of the survey that's still in the field as we speak. So this has been open for about 2 weeks. We've done some advertising for it through our mailing list, as well as through the OTC's newsletter, also published it on the social media sites. And so far we're up to 155 responses as of 4 p.m. earlier this afternoon. As before, although we've asked the question slightly different, the overwhelming majority of respondents are longtime residents over 10 years. The vast majority of them live on the corridor, 89%, and the slight majority of them live within earshot, visual shot of the road itself. 48, a little bit over 40% are like myself and Joe, who live far enough off the Rancho Santa Fe Road that we really only hear it when the Saturday morning speeders are gunning their engines, or the emergency responders are sounding their sirens. We asked some questions about how people use the road, and almost everybody drives on it, either to work or for kids or for some other purpose. About half the people frequently, meaning 3 times a week or more, use the trails and or cross the road, and a significant but much smaller fraction ride bikes on the road. As before, safety is a concern, and the vast majority of respondents would like to see the improvements to the safety of the road. And this time we teased apart bikeability from the people that are using the bike on the trails, where we've bundled out with walkers and horseback riders, versus those that use it on the roads. And certainly the safety emphasis, I think, is highest for those that are trail users. And in that trail users, we also included crossing the road. But it's also significant for folks that are bicycling on the roads and just generally trying to slow down the speed of traffic during non-congested times. And as before, the drive to preserve the rural character and the simultaneous desire to reduce congestion continue to be the sort of yin and yang of the challenge that we're trying to deal with here, in having the best of both worlds. Importantly, we asked a question: how much do you support the proposed recommendations? And we gave some super top line stuff that it would involve safety and traffic calming and reducing congestion. And the support from our respondents was strong and strongly positive. You can see that over 50 respondents had a ranking of 95 or more, the bar all the way to the right. And the median response was 86, where 50 was a neutral response and 0 was strongly opposing. So the recommendations that Amy walked through seem to resonate with the vast majority of our community. There is a significant group of folks who are kind of neutral, and a handful of people who are strongly opposed. I did read through the comments provided for the 11 people who listed their support at 25 or less. So I took that as opposition. And they kind of ran into three camps. Not everybody gave written responses to the open-ended question, but of those that did, 3 or 4 don't like the idea of roundabouts. And some of them specified fears of being able to get out onto Rancho Santa Fe Road when it's congested, or the delays in the emergency vehicle responses. Another set cited that, really Rancho Santa Fe Road should be a major thoroughfare, that it really is a major road, and we should stop with all the little stop signs. We should just put in traffic signals at the 4-way stop signs, and we should even consider widening the road. So there was 2 or 3 folks that had that kind of an opinion. And then the others that cited concerns were fearful for safety issues. And so one respondent thought that the trail should be closed down altogether, that it was just unsafe to be having kids and horseback riders that close to such a major road where people are driving so fast. So that's the summary of the survey response. We will leave the survey open, and we'll encourage additional people to weigh in. Love to hear people's responses, both verbally through forums like this, through the social media sites, but also through the survey where we can sort of document and quantify the answers. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a little bit and open it up to the panel and a broad Q&A session. We'll try to take turns between people who raise their hand with the blue hand and the folks that have written in questions to the Q&A.
Do you want to, Dan? What about the question that you just kind of posed that somebody had asked about the concern of being able to get out onto Rancho Santa Fe Road if there are roundabouts? Kind of essentially assuming that folks are going north or south on Rancho Santa Fe Road with roundabouts are going to have the right of way, and the folks on the side streets aren't going to be able to get out. Perhaps Abe or somebody can answer that question, just kind of give a little bit of information on how roundabouts work. Even though this isn't designed yet, we know how roundabouts operate since we do have other roundabouts in our city.
Yeah, certainly. If Abe can tackle any of that. I think a related issue is that we talked about last time on this call was sort of what can we learn from the roundabouts sort of west of the 5 on Leucadia Boulevard too, and how would that serve as a model for what we're seeing here in Rancho Santa Fe? So Abe, do you want to try to tackle any of that?
I'm sure, yes. So one major point of consideration is that roundabouts don't have right-of-ways like the way stop signs or regular intersections have in the California Vehicle Code. The reason behind that is it is assumed that when people enter roundabouts, they can basically enter all at the same time. The roundabouts are considered to be large enough to, accept vehicles entering from all legs. However, our situation is Rancho Santa Fe is that chances are the roundabout is not going to be that big, and 2 vehicles entering at our perpendicular legs, at the adjacent legs, might have to know the right of way. Now, most states in the country give the right of way to the vehicle on the left. Now, this is contrary to our regular understanding of how intersections work. The reason for that is you are not in conflict when you want to enter the roundabout. You're not in conflict to the vehicle to your right. You're actually blocking the vehicle that's entering the intersection on your left, in this case, the roundabout. So that's why if there is somebody on your right, you can't enter. But if there is somebody entering the roundabout at the same time as you, and the roundabout is not large enough to accommodate both of you, in other words, both of you cannot enter the roundabout at the same time because of the smaller radius of the roundabout. In that situation, you have to give the right of way to the one on your left, again, if you're entering together. So we had a concern from one of our residents who lived, I believe, on a side street and had concerns that because of the higher volume of traffic on the main road, they might not be able to get into the roundabout. But I said, kind of treat it like a stop sign. The only difference is you give the right of way to the vehicle on your left. So if the side street enters and there is a vehicle on Rancho Santa Fe, if they arrive at the same time, whoever is on the left will enter first. I don't know if it was clear enough, but that's how.
And Abe, down on Leucadia Boulevard, do they have the same sort of traffic volumes at any point in the day that Rancho Santa Fe Road has?
I think, I mean, last meeting when this came up, I quickly went back and checked, and I think it was close. I think I want to say Rancho Santa Fe was like around 10% more, 15%. It wasn't a very big difference, but my apologies, I don't have the number with me. But after the last meeting, this question came up, and I quickly checked, and the numbers were not far from each other.
And so, Abe, on that kind of thing, as Amy talked about in the recommendations, I think the idea is that some of the deeper dive on this kind of thing would be during the design process. Is it your sort of assertion that for where we are right now, you believe that the traffic circles would be a reasonable solution?
I'm pretty sure it can work. How effective it would be, and what kind of a benefit we can get from it, that's something that, I'm sorry, unless we do like a micro simulation, we won't know, but that micro simulation would show how the different legs of the roundabout would work together. So it would, when it gets to the actual design of the roundabout, it would give us a lot of good information.
Okay, great. So I see that Gary Coop has his hand raised. Should we go to Gary and invite other participants to raise their hand if they'd like to speak?
Let's do that. Jill, did you want to say something on that same topic before we go to Gary? You just have to unmute yourself.
Jill, you got it now.
Yeah, my hand is not raised. I'm fine.
Oh, all right. It looked like it was raised. All right. So we'll go to Gary. I'm going to allow Gary to talk. Hold on. Let me do this. All right, Gary, you can now, you're live.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you see me?
No, we won't be able to see you. You're in the webinar.
That's probably a good thing. Yeah, so this is a follow-up question for Abe. First of all, I want to say that I love roundabouts. I think they're a great solution. I've used them in Europe all the time. I think that this is a good approach. My biggest concern about the roundabouts, first of all, I'm one of those people that live on Lone Jack. So I'm going to be coming into Rancho Santa Fe from Lone Jack. And my biggest concern is that during peak hours, particularly in the afternoon with the northbound traffic, this roundabout at Lone Jack is going to be followed immediately by 2 stop signs. And so they'll get through the roundabout, but then they're going to hit 2 stop signs. And I'm concerned that the traffic is just going to back up from the stop signs into the roundabout, preventing anybody from getting into the roundabout from the side streets. My question is, you talked about, I think something, I didn't get the term micro modeling, or there was some term that you used, but has anybody has a traffic engineer looked at the impact of a roundabout followed by a stop sign in a very congested state of the day? And my other comment is that looking at the Lucadia Boulevard, where there's a roundabout followed by a stop sign, I guess I was a little surprised by the comment that the traffic pattern on Lucadia Boulevard is not that much different than it is on Rancho Santa Fe. I've driven both of them many, many times. I have never run into traffic on Lucadia Boulevard like I have on Rancho Santa Fe. It's never taken me half an hour to get from the freeway to, across the railroad tracks. So, I was surprised by that comment. So those are my two issues. Do these things work in heavy traffic environments where there's a stop sign? And can we really rely upon a traffic study that includes what I think is a lower traffic area on Lucadia Boulevard? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Gary. Those were a lot of points made, a lot of questions. So let's, Abe, are you able to help out with those questions?
Yeah. So yeah, as you correctly mentioned, the modeling that we had to evaluate the scenarios, those in no way are good enough to go into that much of a detail to evaluate an impact of an intersection like so close to another roundabout, and then we have another one after the roundabout. So the modeling that we currently have are called macro modeling. Those macros, they don't really work much on how vehicles impact each other and how maneuvers at the roundabout can cause delay before or after entering the roundabout. So they're more like general broad modelings for the corridor and assigns certain number of seconds of delay, irrelevant of when the vehicle arrives. Is it in a platoon? Is it, what kind of a speed it has? So it's a very general model. But when we get to the actual design of the roundabout, the modeling would change, and there would be micro simulation or micro modeling where all those things would come into effect. And at that point, we would have a way better idea of how these like closely located intersections impact each other and how vehicles would impact each other entering at adjacent legs at the same time. To your second question about similarity, what I did check, and the numbers were close. Again, by close, I'm not saying like within 2% of each other. I think it was around 10 to 20%. They were within 10 to 20% of each other. It wasn't that the difference is, I checked the daily traffic. The difference between Lucadia and Rancho Santa Fe is we have a very serious peak hour problem on Rancho Santa Fe. On Lucadia, it's a little bit more better distributed, which affects the delay and congestion on Lucadia. We don't have such a major peak period on Lucadia. We do have it, but it's not as bad as Rancho Santa Fe. That's, I think, what's causing the feeling to be very different.
All right.
We do have a written question in the Q&A from Dale. How much did the reduced traffic during 2020 affect the traffic data? And so, Dale, the data was collected in late January, so before the COVID restrictions happened. So the traffic study itself was pre-COVID data.
All right, that's good.
I do see that some folks are asking questions in the chat or making statements in the chat. So maybe I'll ask Jill if she can kind of look through there and bring forward those things that are actually questions. I see that one is from some guy named Bob, you might know, asking about will the trail actually ever be built from the meeting hall out to Encinitas Boulevard?
Yes,
George,
it
you want to
will.
tackle that one?
Yes, we can, and yes, it will. There have been several setbacks on that, unfortunately. The trail, I thought that the trail on Rancho Santa Fe Road from El Camino del Norte going south down to Encinitas was going to be one that we were able to get going sooner than the El Camino del Norte one, but the El Camino del Norte one is likely to go first. And the reason for that is the conflicts with the public right away. We're still having some, if you look further south along Rancho Santa Fe Road, you'll see a lot of, around Pepper Tree, you'll see above ground facilities owned by Telecom, owned by SDG&E, just sprinkled all over our public right away, including poles. And so all of that stuff needs to be relocated because we can't have a trail going through those areas. There's also like a facility that's actually in a hole if you've ever walked that area. So it's and then there's a ravine there that we have to cover. So there's a ton of public right-of-way issues. The money has been allocated for this project. And so it's not a funding issue that we funded the project, but the real issue is resolving the public right-of-way issues. And if you've ever dealt with any of these utilities like the telecom or SDG&E, it takes forever to get them to relocate and forever to plan this out. And so we're on it and we've been on it, and I'm hoping that we're able to do this sooner than later. But I will absolutely keep everybody up to date when we're ready to move forward. The trail on El Camino del Norte is likely to move forward in the matter of months. Probably within the next month or so, we'll have a contractor on board and ready to kind of start moving the soil in that area. So I will. Jill, did you want to field a question or introduce the
yes,
question?
Joe, someone had asked, and I'm not sure what is happening there. What is the work currently going on Lone Jack Road? That's a question.
So that's a good question. So we have, there's a project called the Liebenhain Trunk Sewer Project, and that's a big project that we've been discussing and putting together for a long time. Essentially, the sewer line that runs through the Escondido Creek, there's a number of issues with it, including the fact that we need more manholes and access to that line so that we're able to clean it out, and also replacing a part of that. And so unfortunately, we'll need to, in parts of where that line runs through the Escondido Creek, portions of it are going to be able to stay in the creek, and other portions are going to have to come out into the roadway, into the public right away. And right around Lone Jack, where you have the creek, right around Doug's house, just kind of west of Doug's house, right around the Little Oaks Park, it's gonna, there's a 15-inch line that runs right down the middle of that road. So sorry, Doug. Around April, you're starting to see them kind of digging holes and potholing right now to see where the line is, but that line essentially runs right down the middle of that road, and so that will be dug up and replaced, and new manholes put in. But then it runs when it will run, it's going to run straight down that road through where Ellie's Bridge is, through the creek there, and then out to El Camino del Norte, and it's going straight down toward Manchester. And so that the first phase is actually is north of Encinitas Boulevard, coming up the creek. And so what we're seeing around those areas are the construction of putting in and replacing that pipeline, that sewer pipeline. And that's something that we had a presentation at the Liebenhain Town Council and also before the City Council. We can always do another presentation on that to make sure that people are up to date on what's going on. The project team on that, the city project team, also sends out notices to all of the affected property owners. And so folks around Doug's area, my area, should be getting notices soon for the construction in that area for around April. People that are down toward Manchester may not get notices for some time because that's in a different phase altogether. But we can definitely get more information out on that and even do a presentation before the town council if folks want.
Okay, do you want to switch over to the question and answers? We have, I'd say, 3 kind of categories of other things that have been shared in the chat. One is just simply how the roundabouts will work in heavy traffic flow. And I think that we have gotten Abe to understand that we'll need that to be addressed in design. Then the evacuation is the other issue. And then the last issue is the proposed apartment building down on the corner and how that's going to impact it. If I'll go back through and be sure there weren't any other topics, but do you guys want to try to address any of those 3 or put them on for a different type of a forum?
So I see that Denny's asking some questions on the evacuations. I think we'll probably just give him a little voice to voice them. Michael is, I think, representing some of the strongly opposed camp and has his hand raised and had put in some text. So maybe we'll just recognize Michael and invite him to speak.
Yeah, there was somebody by the name of Susan that was in the queue, but I don't see her anymore. So I'm going to go to Michael, who's next in the queue. But Susan, if you're still listening, if you wanted to, I'll recognize Michael, and then you're next in the queue.
And Michael, you'll need to unmute yourself, but you have the floor.
Michael?
There you go.
I think you have, Michael, I think you have a connection. Michael, I think you have a connection issue on your side. We're not hearing it very well. Maybe hang up and call back in. All right, let's.
I'll go ahead and read the comment out loud. Just I think it probably gives fairly strong voice to the concerns. Rancho Santa Fe Road is totally overwhelmed. A failed roadway. Roundabouts installed throughout other parts of Encinitas are dangerous. Just look at the tire marks on the curbing and the tire tracks through the landscaping. Are these not examples of failure? England, Austria, Netherlands, you name it, have the same problems. RSF has overwhelming traffic volume with very large trucks and truck/trailers. There's not enough room for large enough roundabouts. I have 30 years of experience with roundabouts. And so that's obviously more of a statement than a question. But I think that is kind of the voice that I was mentioning, that 3 or 4 of the folks that were opposed were sort of saying.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's really early in the process in terms of the roundabouts. We've recommended them because we believe that they will benefit Rancho Santa Fe Road. But in terms of large trucks, in terms of the people from side streets being able to get onto Rancho Santa Fe Road, in terms of the fire trucks, these are all major issues, and these are issues that need to be addressed through the design phase. And I know that if anything we do is going to affect the response time or inhibit evacuation, I mean, this is not something, nothing that we're going to do is going to affect that negatively. And the fire department also has to sign off on anything we do. So everything has to actually help the situation and not worsen the situation. And hopefully that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to help the situation and not worsen anything.
That's definitely the goal. So I'm gonna go ahead and invite Denny to speak. He'd asked a couple of questions in both the chat and the Q&A. For those that don't know, oops, I think I invited the wrong person. So Danny, you can unmute yourself and join the conversation as you want.
Thank you.
Denny
Can you hear
is yeah, we can hear you. Denny is the chairman of the Levenhain Fire Safe Council. As I think most of you know, I'm the president of the Levenhain Town Council, and we've been collaborating together to help better understand the fire evacuation risk. And so Denny's asking about the wisdom of narrowing roads and installing roundabouts with regards to the evacuation risk. And Denny, just so you know, what we're talking about doing to narrow the roads is just painting narrower lanes, not physically narrowing them.
Okay, great. That's very good information to learn. And thanks for the opportunity to speak. And one more thanks goes out to all of you on the committee for putting so much work into this. Really appreciate it. With respect to narrowing the lanes, I don't know that my concern, if that's what is going to be the limitation of the alterations, and I don't really have a concern on that. People tend to, in emergencies, tend to ignore those lines and drive over them if they have to, and I don't think speed's going to be an issue with evacuating the Levenhain, unfortunately. The other piece I have, it may be good for the engineering department to research, and that is if we're in an evacuation, or even in, it has applicability to heavy traffic, what's the performance of those traffic circles during bumper to bumper traffic? And I know that in panic situations, in evacuations, people tend not to let people in the line. And if, as was described, the person to the left has the right of way, I can see somebody coming from Lone Jack having to wait until some nice driver lets them in, because the others are concerned and are trying to make it through to the other side. I'm just wondering if they've conducted studies at all, if they've been able to discover studies on the performance of traffic circles in evacuations.
Okay, great. So Abe, are you on? Do you have any data or information with regards to Denny's question about sort of bumper to bumper situations and performance in evacuation scenarios?
Well, I can't comment really on evacuation because that's its own study, and the volume of traffic that uses our roadway network and the grid is very different. But with regards to bumper traffic, like a regular peak period that we have, as mentioned, it's just think about it like a stop sign. I mean, we have many intersections that people arrive bumper to bumper, but it doesn't matter that Rancho Santa Fe has a line of 50 cars and Lone Jack has a line of 10 cars. No extra right of way would be given to those 50 cars. When you arrive at the same time, the one on the left has a right of way, but as soon as that one gets in, then the car behind him has not arrived at the same time with the one that is currently at the intersection. So although it's still on the left side of this car, but they haven't arrived at the same time. And the car who gave the right of way to the car on the left would enter next.
Okay, thank you. And along the same general thinking, in the published evacuation plan that the county sheriff's office has done for the city, they propose bagging the stop signs on Rancho Santa Fe Road. And so as the evacuation plan is written today, the ability to get out from the side streets onto Rancho Santa Fe Road with bagged stop signs and people driving 40 miles an hour or faster, I think it's going to be more problematic, right? If people have to slow down and get down to 15, 20 miles an hour to go around the roundabout, I think you got a better chance of sort of nosing your way in at 15 miles an hour than you would at 40 or 45. Denny, did you have anything else or should we move
Oh,
on to the next person?
I think you covered the first one pretty well. Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you,
Thank you,
thank you. And just for the folks, since everybody's here in the neighborhood, and I think many of us are very worried about the evacuation risks. A group of concerned citizens has hired an outside fire consultant to start looking at the evacuation plan and doing some fire modeling on sort of how long we would have to get out in sort of a worst case scenario. And the preliminary results are sort of discouraging. So one issue that the town council and the fire safe council is going to be pushing over the next month or two is really to try to raise a sense of urgency with the city at re-reviewing the evacuation plan that they have in place, and really taking a serious look at what risk they're putting the folks in the valley at in the case of a Santa Ana driven wildfire. And I don't know, Joe, did you want to say anything on that, or should we move on to the Goodson project comments?
No, obviously, fire risk is a top, and public safety is a top priority for the city. And we've, the city and Leaving Town Council have partnered in the past to make sure that we're bringing resources and information to residents. We'll continue to do things like that, like large animal evacuation, also other services that are provided through San Diego Humane Society, our fire department, our county fire department. Make sure that folks know all about evacuation planning, their individual evacuation planning, large animal evacuation planning. Also in terms of like what you were just mentioning about the city's evacuation plan, we talked about the fact that that the city is updating their evacuation plan, and the city sees the Fire Safe Council, the Leaving Fire Safe Council, obviously as a partner, a trusted partner in this, and so wants to work with you and other folks of the Fire Safe Council to help with the new fire evacuation plan, and make sure that everybody's kind of giving their information and is happy about what is going into that. So no, I'd be happy to help out in any way, and I've said that before, so I continue to stand ready to support and help. I know that we have a lot of folks around the Fire Safe Council that are engaged in these issues all the time, and so I want to make sure that you guys are interfacing with the fire professionals at the city to make sure that any issues that you see, that you're raising that with the fire professionals, and that we're all kind of working together in the updating of any fire evacuation plan. So.
Very good, thank you.
Jill,
and then,
did you want to go to the chat? And it looks like we have a lot of stuff in the chat.
Joe, I think the other question that Jill had teed up for us was the Goodson project. I know that, as somebody who may be voting on this down the road, you probably are a little bit limited in what you can say. But I'll just give folks a general overview of where we stand. The Goodson project is now deemed complete as an application. So they've had 6 cycles of going back and forth with the city planning department on their application, questions, answers, responses, etc. It's now with the planning staff to make a recommendation to the planning commission with regards to the project. They're looking at sometime in late spring for having that planning commission meeting. As it relates to traffic, they've claimed a by right status using state laws and asserted a waiver of compliance with CEQA and no need to study traffic impacts on Rancho Santa Fe Road. They are proposing a signal at McCain Lane and Encinitas Boulevard. It's about 350 feet from the Rancho Santa Fe Encinitas Boulevard Manchester signal. And so I think standards are that you wouldn't put 2 signals within 500 feet of each other, as I understand it. And I do wonder, with regards to the wildfire evacuation risk and just normal functioning, what does it mean to have two signals that close together? You'd have a left turn lane at going into Candy Lane across the street from McCain Lane. You'd have dual left turn lanes going into McCain Lane, and then that funny little cutout in the median that goes into Rob's 7-Eleven Postal Corner parking lot, and then Rancho Santa Fe Road. I know that when we try to make a left from Encinitas Boulevard on Rancho Santa Fe Road, and somebody's trying to make the left into Rob's parking lot, it's already kind of a zoo today. Abe, can you give us any insights into the new traffic signal proposed there and the traffic ramifications of having two signals that close together?
Can you please repeat which signal?
The Goodson project, the huge thing behind 7-Eleven. A lot of people are asking about that.
Yeah, that one. So as you know, the location is pretty close to the Encinitas Boulevard signal and Rancho Santa Fe. What our engineer who is reviewing the project has been trying to assure is those two signals, if obviously approved, can work together. The timing of those and how they sync to each other, and the pocket lengths and the capacity we have at those left turn pockets. So there will be a lot of restriping, and there will be a lot of modification to the layout of the roadway on Encinitas Boulevard. We think it can work. It will take a lot of work, and obviously it will be all on the developer to build the signal and change the controllers and connect the two signals and change the signal timing. It's typical with all development projects when they impact the traffic signal. They are responsible for all the modifications, and they have to guarantee that it can work. I personally feel like it can work. I think the two. I mean, I've had signals that are closer than that to each other, and with because controllers these days are very sophisticated. They do give us a lot of options to assure that we're optimizing and then the flow of traffic works. And one good thing is that the volume of traffic coming out of that project is not that big of a deal other than the PM and AM peak. And the impact on Encinitas Boulevard is technically at our hands, because we are the ones who will be giving the number of seconds of green that the project access can get. So if we find out that it is affecting Encinitas Boulevard to the level that we cannot handle, we can always on and off ramps with their RAM metering. We have it on a lot of roads where you want to have a good flow on your major road. The minor road would be impacted a little bit, so they'll have some.
Abe, your audio is cutting in and out.
All right. Why don't we do this? Why don't we now go? Let's refocus this back onto our task at hand, which is Rancho Santa Fe Road and the recommendations that we've made. Let's go back to the questions and answers, and specifically focus on the recommendations that this group is making. I don't know that we want to start exploring a project that is in the process of going through the planning stages. I can't comment, and I just don't think that it's something that we want to have this group debating or talking about right now. So let's go back to the questions, and we have some Q&As. It has Stacy Wolter. Is it possible to change the timing for the traffic light at RSF and Calais Servo to discourage commuter traffic from the north in the morning, make the light for the southbound traffic there very, very long? This group has been discussing the changing of that light, and that light would need to, the changing of that light would have to be coordinated with Carlsbad, the city of Carlsbad, and with through Abe and the city of Carlsbad. So that is something that we've been talking about in terms of making sure that we don't have congestion at the northern portions of the corridor. And so that's something that is that part of our recommendation? It's something that I think that Abe has been talking about. And that this group has talked about, and so I don't know if it's part of our recommendation.
It's a Carlsbad signal, Joe. So
right.
It's not exactly in our domain. It's a little bit out of scope.
Right. But it's certainly, I think that we discussed the fact that there's going to be congestion up there, and that we would basically coordinate. And so we coordinate all the time with the city of Carlsbad on a whole host of issues, and so. We'll definitely coordinate. If it's not part of our recommendation, this will likely be direction that's given to the engineering staff to look into this type of coordination. Jill, did you want to read anything from the chat? And I think Michael's.
You're muted, Jill.
Jill, you're muted. After Jill reads the question, maybe we'll go to Michael, who's next in the list.
Okay, there was a question. There's nothing new in the chat other than the consideration of lighted crosswalks at Lone Jack and El Camino Real. And then there was a comment that Mr. Andre was not aware of the sewer system work on Lone Jack. So those are the new items in the chat.
Did anybody want to say anything about the lights? I think that we discussed, actually, we didn't really discuss, I was going to say lights, but that was really about the illumination, the potential illumination of the roundabouts themselves. But we didn't really talk about the lighting of the crosswalk. Are they saying that they actually want lit up crosswalks, or?
They're just making a comment, have we considered lighted crosswalks?
So we have talked about the issue, and if we have a raised crosswalk, on-demand crosswalk for the school kids at Degano in phase 3, that would certainly have to have some sort of flashing lights and stuff like that, because it isn't at a controlled intersection. But I think the general consensus of the steering committee, and I'd love to hear the audience's response, general consensus of the steering committee, I think, is let's get the crosswalks painted as soon as possible. So as anything that's going to slow that process down is probably something that we want to try to avoid. The rural character is clearly one of the most important factors to our audience. Over 80% have that rated as very important to maintain. And so painting crosswalks at the 4-way stop signs seems like it's a very low cost and easy to implement quickly solution. And, you know, we have had fatalities of pedestrians, one fairly recently, and, you know, it would be shameful to have to wait for another fatality to get the crosswalks painted.
Yeah, no, I share your concern. I think that, you know, hopefully, you know, when we move this recommendation from the task force to the city, that we're able to act on that right away. Abe, did you want to share anything about how the city deploys kind of crosswalks and how you engineer that? I mean, we talked about it a little bit before, you know, where there's no crossing, we can, and it doesn't necessarily seem like a natural cross area for a crosswalk where you'd have to kind of over-engineer it. But in an area where we have existing stop signs and existing crossings, if we're just going to put continentals in there instead of the 2 stripes, you know, we wouldn't have to have lights there illuminating stuff, right? Or what's your take on that, Abe?
That is correct. We tend to stay away from the old 2 parallel line only crosswalks. I would say almost all of the crosswalks that I've done in town these past 2-3 years were all continental crosswalks. Something that can make it a little bit complicated is when you introduce a new crosswalk. I mean, obviously crossing is almost at all intersections, it's totally feasible per CVC. But when you actually paint a new crosswalk that is non-existent, we end up with a lot of ADA issues, and a simple crosswalk that can just be painted ends up costing $30,000 because of all the concrete work that we need and all the corners and all the curb ramps and everything. Data specific locations that was mentioned, that we had that unfortunate fatality. That one, we have the design ready. It's just we are in conversation with our risk management about the process of it and how we can implement it. Because at the same time, we want to make sure that there's our attorneys would allow us. Because usually these locations are sensitive and you want to implement a crossing. One other thing about raised crosswalks that was brought up, as much as I like those, our current city policy does not allow implementing raised crosswalks. We have the first cushion of speed, the first tier of speed cushion program, a speed table program. We implement all these around town with neighborhood votes and petitions. But the program that is a council approved program does not allow us to use them on circulation element classified roads, which Rancho Santa Fe is one of those. For those, the only body that can override that policy is council itself. Like the ones that we did on Highway 101, the raised crosswalks, those are council approved, and there's no petition, there's no neighborhood vote. So as much as I think with those random speeding issues that we have on Rancho Santa Fe, the raised crosswalks can help. Without council approval, we can't do them. Now, that being said, I feel like at the end of the project where we are presenting our findings to council, the roundabouts, again, if supported by the neighborhood, and the lane narrowings and the striping work and all these other stuff, if we feel we can accept the raised crossing, we can include that in the package. And if it gets council's vote, then it kind of makes the implementation very easy because it's on a plan that has council approval and it technically overrides our petition and neighborhood vote process, if that's something that this group wants. But if we want it, that's the way to do it.
Abe, can I follow up on the comment? Abe, can I follow up on the comment about lawyers and risk management at the city slowing down, putting in crosswalks where we had a fatality? Is that what you just said?
So again, it's a bit tough to explain since we're on an official meeting. But to simplify it, whenever there is a situation, there is a collision, there is a serious injury, there is a fatality. The idea of rushing into changing things and adding some sort of even something that is simply understandable as an improvement can make things complicated. So that's why usually in these cases we tend to, listen to our attorneys and, take our steps very slowly.
Joe, can we give Abe the support he needs to put the crosswalks in?
Of course, Abe has the support. And when these recommendations go to the city council and the traffic commission, I'm sure that will get done right away. Every one of I mean, there's a lot of recommendations like the crosswalks that I assume are going to get done right away. And so we'll make sure that we're working toward getting a lot of the ones that I consider to be fairly easily done as quickly as possible. Did we want to recognize Michael? I think he's been waiting for a while.
Yes.
Councilor Musk, if I may, something that I think I forgot to touch on. I think in a few of the neighborhood meetings that I had with several residents of Rancho Santa Fe, I did mention this, and I want to reiterate. I want to give you my personal promise as an engineer. I feel the speed limit there is not justified. As soon as this item goes to council, I'll promise to redo a survey. After our measures go in, I'll do the low-hanging fruits very quickly. I mean, obviously, we can't wait for the roundabout to go in, but the lane narrowings and the signage and the striping work, immediately after that, I'll do a survey, and I have a very, very good confidence that the speed limit will go down. I kind of feel like the speed limit over there, with the minor tweaks that I can do, to the survey. I'm authorized by law to do a bunch of things. I feel like I can take it to 30. 35 guaranteed. I'm pretty sure I can get it to 30.
That's awesome news.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abe. Do you think that would be something that we could have by the time the kids go back to school next fall?
It depends on because we have to make a change to the road. Otherwise, the survey is valid for 7 years. And the survey over there was done in 17. I did check last time. So we have to introduce some sort of a change to the roadway to justify a midterm survey. So I do, and I also do like to introduce something because we can't survey at close to the stop signs. We have to survey at a location by law that is not affected by intersection control. So it has to be mid-block at a location that is not affected by a driveway or an adjacent intersecting roadway. Because of that, I do like to do some sort of a change, some sort of positive change before going out there and doing a new survey. Now that can just be like narrowing the lane or forming a walkway on one side of the road or introducing a few marked crosswalks. So I'd like to do something before, even without it, because one thing that the previous folks did not do, again, this can be a decision made by this group. There is a 5 mile per hour reduction that a city traffic engineer can override a survey and say, okay, the survey says 40 mile per hour. I am going to lower it by 5. That's the maximum that we are allowed to because of some conditions of the roadway, which Rancho Santa Fe has all of them. We have, equestrians, we have horses, we have pedestrians. Yeah. So, but that option was not utilized in 2017. For me to utilize that, I have to bring it.
We'll go eat dinner.
Excuse me?
It's okay, Abe. I think we just had one of the panelists. So
All right. So why don't we do this? Hey, thank you. All right. Thank you, Abe. And thank you for we want to make sure that we get that speed limit down as quickly as possible. Michael, why don't you give your comments?
It's been a long night. Thank you so much for everyone's comments. I hope you can hear me and I don't sound like Minnie Mouse.
No, you don't sound like Minnie Mouse this time.
All right.
And thank you for being patient and waiting.
Oh, it's not a problem. This is our neighborhood. I'm depressed by the city engineer's comments. I think that Rancho Santa Fe Road has been speed limit has been too high for 25 years. It makes no sense. Why does it take so long to have an impact on our neighborhood? That's number one comment. I got many, but I'll try to keep them short. The second one is, how can we have this conversation about Rancho Santa Fe Road without the Goodson project as an impact? Goodson has been eliminated from any requirement on traffic impact, on lighting impact, on environmental impact. It's on our doorstep. How can we have this meeting tonight without considering the impacts of the Goodson project? Joe, you and I you live immediately behind me on Crystal Ridge. I live on Rancho Santa Fe Vista. We have had this conversation many times. Why are we not having a real-time conversation about the impact on Liebenhain by such a massive project in our midst? I can't consider Rancho Santa Fe Road separate from that impact. Can you, logically? I hope not. All right, so that's enough of that. I get it. We're limited by bureaucracy. The city engineer bothers me every time I hear him talk. He won't listen to reality. The city council bothers me every time I hear a report. They don't listen to reality. What is happening today? Not 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when none of us are living here. I'm a longtime resident of the neighborhood. I love every one of you for your contribution and your commitment to making this a better place. We're being overwhelmed. End of my comment.
Thank you, Michael. No, Michael, we're definitely, all of us there's an absolute consensus that we want to get the target speed on Rancho Santa Fe Road down as low as possible. So I don't know why it wasn't done in the past, but we are looking at putting in place, various calming measures that will certainly, as our traffic engineer said, that when they go out and back and do that traffic study, it's going to show that we can lower that speed throughout the corridor. And that is the absolute goal of ours, to lower that speed to make it safer on the road. So thank you for your comments.
All right, I'm going to be a little bit mindful of time. We do have to leave 5-10 minutes for Jenny to wrap up, but we do have time for 1 or 2 more questions. I see a couple of hands raised. I don't think we've heard from Jennifer Harris yet. So I'm going to invite Jennifer Harris to speak. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you see me? I'm on my phone. I'm still figuring this out.
We can hear you. We can't actually see you, but we can hear you. That's fine.
Sure. Okay, well, that'll do. Hi, I live at 1159 Wild Canary Lane. It's off of Rancho Santa Fe and 14th Street. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I made a request, I believe, about maybe 8 months ago to put a crosswalk in at Olive Crest and Rancho Santa Fe, and also to put a fencing along what side would that be? I guess the east side of Rancho Santa Fe between Olive Crest and Olivenheim Pioneer Elementary School for a safe crossing, for a safe pedestrian route for children to go to school. And I just would like to reiterate that I think time is of the essence for that type of project. It doesn't seem like it needs to be connected to the roundabout construction or anything like that. It's, it's a priority for me for safety for my family. And so I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Maybe Dan or Amy, we can just maybe talk a little bit about our recommendation. We actually phased it, Jennifer. So a lot of what you just mentioned are in our early phases, and the roundabouts are in the last phase. And so a lot of the crosswalks, the fencing, the continuation of the trail, we're hoping to get done as quickly as possible because, to move to the process of, if in fact we do move to the process of looking further at a roundabout, there's design and there's funding, and so it could be some time before anything gets done. So clearly we want to make sure that we're making the corridor as safe as possible as soon as possible. I don't know if you guys have anything else to share.
Yeah, no, I think that is exactly it, right? The steering committee takes seriously the urgency of some of these safety improvements. The 5 proposed crosswalks at the 4-way intersections, including the one at Olive Crest, the improvements to the trail, including the split rail fencing, narrowing through paint the high-speed parts of the Rancho Santa Fe Road, conducting the speed survey, getting the speed limits down, and posting 25-mile-an-hour speed zones near the schools. Those are all phase 2 priorities, urgent priorities. We're trying to push those, as Joe said, as quickly as possible. And in terms of what that means, I was asking Abe about the practicality of getting that done before kids go back to school in the fall. One thing that I've learned through this whole process is the speed of city is not the same thing as my business life. But we through the community, by continuing to put political pressure and urgency on the council and the staff, can make a difference. We can make that happen faster.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate both Joe's attention and yours, Dan. And I'm looking forward to seeing that accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I think that's it for the speakers. Let's check in with Jill. Was there anything else from the chat that seems?
I think Michelle Totoli had a number of comments about Pepper Tree.
Yeah, I think that was the last issue that's been brought up, is entering and exiting Pepper Tree.
Okay, very good. So the steering committee has raised the safety at that corner as an issue. As I think you know, the balloon fields have submitted an application for a density bonus project that may impact pepper tree land. The Goodson project right across the street is proposing a emergency driveway more or less across the street. So there is a fair amount of stuff in the project space. What we've asked is that Abe take a look at that from a safety perspective. Abe, have you had a chance to do any work down there?
We also have, and I'm sure Abe is aware of this. We also have a separate project team that's working on the Rancho Santa Fe Road trail that would traverse that area and cross Pepper Tree. There's going to be, just before you get to Pepper Tree, there'll be there's a little water culvert that would be covered vis-a-vis this project, and then we would have to obviously have some sort of safe crossing across Pepper Tree. And then on the edge of the hot air balloon parcel, and so all of that would have to be taken into consideration as well. I'm not quite sure what engineering is thinking about in terms of making that safer. Maybe Abe knows.
No, Councilmember, I don't know how the design of the trail works at Pepper Tree. However, when it comes to restriping Rancho Santa Fe with this project and the lane narrowing, the goal always was to narrow down the lanes and open up space on east side or west, depending on where we want to have the walkway. I'm not sure if in this area we want to keep the walkway on the west side. My general guideline to the consultant was to keep the walkway on the west side and move the lanes toward east because of the trail that we have. But at Pepper Tree, I'm not sure if we want to keep the walkway on the left, but we still on the west, but we will still narrow down the lane to have that traffic calming effect.
I think there's a lot going on there. So I think certainly us raising this issue is important, because you have not only the Goodson project and the project there and the pumpkin patch parcel, but also the trail. And so how does that all come together, and how do we also improve what is already kind of an unsafe condition in that area?
And so Andy Keene at his CPP did present plans that do have the Trail 82 along the Rancho Santa Fe frontage there that they would be installing as part of their project. I don't know whether that would beat the city to 82 there or not, but there was also a question and answer suggestion to consider realigning Pepper Tree as part of that project where it interfaces with Rancho Santa Fe Road. And Andy did express some willingness to entertain that. And so if that is an option, that might be a positive way of improving safety there.
Are you making a statement, or are you asking a question of Abe or myself? I don't.
I'm sharing information and hoping that as Abe thinks about safety solutions, it registers.
Yeah. So because that. I mean, I've not seen any project materials, and I didn't go to the CPP, so I don't know anything about what's being developed or anything that's being proposed on any kind of street, Pepper Tree Street. And Abe is probably not part of the project team on that, so he's probably not going to know. But I think that the overarching thing here is that as part of the Rancho Santa Fe Road Task Force, we want to ask Abe to kind of help us eliminate this kind of safety risk at Pepper Tree and Rancho Santa Fe Road. And he should be aware that with all the projects going on, how are we going to approach that? How are we going to eliminate the safety risk that already exists, but may be exacerbated by all of this other stuff that's going on? And that's something I think that needs to be looked at. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. So it is 7:55. Should we hand it over to Jenny?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I've been having connectivity issues all evening, so if I drop off, apologies in advance. Just want to say thank you to everybody, all the residents, for joining us tonight. You guys had some really good questions, and we're certainly happy to hear everyone's feedback. I'm just going to very briefly walk us through the community engagement portion of the slide presentation. So we can go to the next slide. Is it Dan? Are you controlling that? There you go.
Yeah, sort of.
Okay, awesome. So the Rancho Santa Fe Road Traffic Task Force have put together 2 groups on different social media platforms, including Facebook and Nextdoor, to kind of provide a platform for residents to engage in the conversation about these potential improvements to the road, and also as a place to share information and any notifications that are pertinent to the project. So if you guys aren't on those pages, go ahead and join. You can just search in the search bar of Facebook or Nextdoor, RSF Road. I think it should just come up if you search RSF Road Task Force on either one of them. And then you just click the join button and the administrator will allow you to join. Once that happens, you can feel free to post comments or post information, discuss with your neighbors any of these improvements or ideas that you may have. It's also a place where we share information with the community. For example, if there are any information resources that we've developed or that the engineers have developed, we're going to post that sort of thing there. Currently, there's a few resources that were recently just posted last week. One was there's a frequently asked questions document, which is actually super helpful. That has a lot of information about the potential improvements to the road, safety implications, all sorts of different type of, a huge variety of information about all the potential improvements. So that's a great document. And there's also a document that we recently posted a link to that were the consensus recommendations that the task force has been talking about tonight. So you can see in more detail what those are. You'll also be able to find a link to any recordings of the Zoom meetings, like for example, the meeting that we're in tonight and the previous meeting that we had with the community. You'll be able to find a link to that to go back and rewatch it or share it with your friends and neighbors if you would care to do that. So yeah, so please look at those pages, join them if you'd like to get engaged. And then as far as next steps for the project, the first thing would be just to talk to your neighbors and talk to your friends who live in Alevinheim. If they're not aware of the project, you can point them to the Facebook and Nextdoor pages where they can find different information and engage in the conversation there. And then short of that, we're also, as Dan has mentioned several times, conducting a survey of residents right now, just as a tool for us to gather feedback on the recommendations and gather people's comments and input to create community consensus. So that survey, I did put a link to the survey in the chat box of this Zoom meeting, so you can easily access it there. If you don't have access to that or you want to share it, you can also find that on the Nextdoor and the Facebook pages as well. And if that fails, you can email Joe and he'll be happy to give it to you. His email is right in the slide right there, jmosca@encinitasca.gov. He'll be happy to provide that to you as well. And then the third thing as a next step would be advocating as a community for these changes to be implemented with the city. And I'm going to hand the mic back to Joe to talk about that because he's a better resource for information about how that process will take place.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Jenny. This is pretty comprehensive, and this really outlines a lot of the next steps. I would just highlight a couple of things which you've said. I think that the conversation is going to continue, and so please, please spread the word to your neighbors. Please send us your feedback. Ask any questions you want through email, through any of the online resources that we have here. And then I think the other thing that I want to highlight is the advocacy. You know, a lot of this takes really kind of advocating with our city government, with our city council and our commissions. And so what's going to happen next is that we will submit these recommendations to the city. Some of the recommendations will go to the Traffic and Public Safety Commission for them to kind of consider. And then hopefully on to the city council with a recommendation from them. And some of the items don't need to go to the Traffic and Public Safety Commission, can come right to the city council, and the city council can act on those. And so as many of the items that can be acted upon immediately by the city council, I'll try to have those move to the city council so that we can act as quickly as possible. But your advocacy is critically important. All of these items cost money to do, and so there's a lot of need throughout our city, and we want to make sure that folks on the city council and city government on our commissions know of our needs here in Alevinhan, and the fact that we want to make sure that this road is functioning properly, and that it's as safe as possible. And so like I said, the next step is going to be that it's going to be submitted to the city, and also there's going to be an opportunity too where the city council is going to be in strategic planning around March, April, and they'll be talking about projects for the capital improvement program, what projects we're going to take on in the future. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities to make sure that that folks at the city council know that these are important items for us. And so we want to make sure that when the steering committee kind of calls upon you to help advocate, help spread the word, and help let the council know how important these items are, that you're willing to step forward and help out as well, because a lot of these items are going to get done because we basically ask for them to be done, and we continue to ask for them to be done time and time again to make sure that they are going to get done. And so I think if we stand together and make sure our voice is heard, we'll definitely get these things done. And some of the bigger items could take a little bit longer to do and be even bigger of a lift. And so we definitely need as many neighbors and residents to help out as possible. And so definitely keep up with us through all the online tools that we have here, and then email anytime that you have a question. And then we'll also send out newsletters through the Alevinhan Town Council and my own newsletter, keeping you up to date on what's going on. So that is nearly the end. Dan, Jill, Twink, Jen, Amy, anybody have anything else to add?
Yeah, I just want to say, I just put the links to the documents and the information resources that I mentioned earlier. I just put that into the chat box for everybody. So if you're looking for that information, you could just look in the chat box and click on those links.
Excellent. Dan?
No, I just want to thank the panelists for their time and hard work making this get to the place where it is. And I wanted to thank the audience for their attention and interest and collaborative spirit and great questions.
Ditto, I agree with Dan. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice night, a nice Friday and weekend, and we'll see each other soon.
Good night.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night.